Mr. Mirsky, as you're probably aware, our offices, sometimes Congress becomes the complaint department to the United States. I get a lot of calls in my office about the unavailability of credit with everything going on. And as a representative for the bankers, they call me. People go into their banks. They're usually the place they've been doing business with forever. Good ratings, never defaulted on a loan. You know the whole story. Can you go through, and you mentioned some of that in your testimony, some of the reasons, just some ABCs on why these people feel they're not able to get credit now at the banks they've been going to for years, so I can go back and have a better idea of what to tell them when they call me? Is that a fair question to you?
That's a excellent question, and that is something that is a severe problem out there in the economy right now, is small business access to credit. The bottom line is that banks don't make any money, they don't make any profits if they're not lending. Community banks want to lend, all banks want to lend, help those small businesses. The credit environment out there, the risk, what the regulators are doing to community banks is preventing the community banks from lending as well as they could to small business owners. They want them to increase capital. They're forcing write-downs on properties that shouldn't be written down. The regulatory environment is making it near impossible for banks, even banks that have capital, to do lending. Banks are scared to do lending now. Also the tax environment. If you don't know what the tax environment is going to be like a year from now, it's difficult to lend. So anything that could be done by Congress to have more sensible regulation. The community banks didn't cause this financial crisis. This was caused by exotic products being crafted by Wall Street and the risk taken there on Wall Street. But it is having, as you point out, a tremendous impact on Main Street and their ability for them to get credit. Another point I'll just say briefly is that the secondary market for small business loans and other type of credit is still frozen. So more policies need to be addressed at freeing up the secondary market, where loans that are made by financial institutions can be sold into the secondary market so they can make fresh loans.
Thank you, Mr. Mirsky. Mr. Hederman, we talked a lot, just even today we've heard about tax credits for heating and air conditioning, for replacement windows, extending the 2001, 2003 tax cuts. It seems like that now, cash for clunkers, you name it, there is a tax credit for just about everything in every industry. Can you tell me, it seems like if we simplified the tax code overall in this country, that wouldn't it be easier? Would we need all the credits and different tax cuts for specific? Can you tell me what the foundation or even your personal view on what our tax code should look like in a perfect world, that it might do all this and the tax code wouldn't have to be 2 feet thick?
You make an excellent point, Congressman. I mean, what we see is whenever we enact certain types of tax credits, tax subsidies, we create distortions in the tax code, which provides distortions in the economic behavior. People, instead of investing in item A, might choose to invest in item B simply because that is being subsidized through taxpayers. I think if we want to look back at a time period and said, what was good tax policy where we cleaned up the tax code, I think we can look back to 1986, where former Chairman Dan Rostenkowski, Senator Bradley, President Reagan enacted what I think a lot of people think is one of the best public policy initiatives enacted in this town, where they sat there and they said the tax code is simply too confusing, there are too many deductions, there are too many credits. People are taking these write-offs for things they don't want to buy simply so they can pay less taxes. If we get rid of some of these taxes, some of these credits, we prevent better economic behavior. We eliminate a lot of these tax distortions that you point out, and you're able to give just about everybody a tax cut by lowering the tax rates for all Americans. Instead of trying to sit there and pick winners and losers of who deserves a tax credit, you're sitting there cutting taxes for everyone. Everybody can benefit, and that is what most economists agree will provide the most economic growth going forward. And I think that those types of reforms are going to be more important as the tax code continues to be more complicated, as it has been with the addition of all the credits since 1986.
I know that my wife and I still do our own taxes, and I'll give credit mostly to my wife who does it. But again, we're of average intelligence, but the book we go through is this thick, and it's extremely difficult to go through, and yet we still have to fund. the highways, our law enforcement, our military, all the things that the services we come to expect in this country and we deserve. So I appreciate the input, and I think that's where we need to start moving towards a reasonable and fair tax code in this country that might solve a lot of this. Thank you, Madam Chair. I yield.